Can you find a connection between Tweety Pie and Brambo? Which hit musical did Bamba Gascoigne write? And what's the connection between Phil Collins and Groucho Marx? Or even the connection between Kenny Everett and Gloria Hunniford? Because they're the team captains for That Show Business, the new celebrity panel game, BBC1, Saturdays at 6:40. This week featuring the teams of Sue Pollard, Richard O'Sullivan, Nerys Hughes and Tim Brooke-Taylor.
And that's tonight at 6:40 on 1.
High-tech hero MacGyver finds himself on the wrong side of a prison wall in 15 minutes, trying to organise an escape, but getting himself imprisoned. Now on BBC1, the news from Moira Stewart.
The headlines this evening: the crisis in China is deepening by the hour. Tiananmen Square remains under occupation despite the introduction of martial law. But military intervention could come during the night. Thousands demonstrate their support in Hong Kong. The transfer to Chinese control could be undermined. And Merseyside unites for a very special cup final. Anti-government demonstrators in Peking have got through their first day under martial law, still in control of Tiananmen Square. Convoys of armed troops trying to reach the city centre again turned back after appeals from the crowd. But tension is building up. Protesters have been injured in several clashes with the army, foreign television cameras have been banned, and now, in the early morning in Peking, student leaders think that the military could make their move in the next few hours.
This was supposed to be the day that martial law clamped down on this capital. Instead, the rebellion led by students seemed to be gaining support. 24 hours after the first hint of tough measures, Tiananmen Square was still under student control. And the hunger strike had been resumed. Those students I talked to a short while ago still fear a military assault. In a move to demoralize the activists, army helicopters swooped low over the square, but because of the density of the people below, there was no chance of them landing. The martial law announcement was made by Prime Minister Li Peng at a Politburo meeting from which Party Secretary Zhao Ziyang was conspicuously absent. The communist authorities are trying to suppress reporting by the scores of Western journalists who came here for the Sino-Soviet summit and found themselves witnessing a revolt. The students are still being supported by large numbers of workers, and with tension running high, there's a real risk of bloodshed. The question this weekend is the unity and resolve of the army. The students say they're sure soldiers will refuse to obey orders to crush the protest. It now looks as if the army has withdrawn for the moment. Martial law has been declared, but has yet to take effect. Brian Barron, BBC News, Peking.
Amid the continuing uncertainty, there have been reports of clashes between the security forces and workers on the outskirts of Peking. The BBC's correspondent Mark Brain saw one outbreak of violence for himself.
I was witness to the beating by police on the approach roads to southwest Peking of at least 2 demonstrators. One man ran away with blood streaming from his head. The mood of the crowd was so extreme that 20 or so unarmed policemen, trapped in their bus and surrounded by workers alternately screaming and laughing, probably owe their lives to the intervention of 3 young students who, through a loud hailer, appealed for calm.
The Foreign Office has warned British travellers to delay trips to China. It said Britain regretted the imposition of martial law and called for moderation and restraint. The demonstrations in China are having an unsettling effect in Hong Kong. The hardline approach being taken by the authorities in Peking is worrying many in the British colony, which will be changing to Chinese rule in 1997.
Nowhere are the concerns about China's future felt more keenly than in neighbouring Hong Kong. Tens of thousands of people braved typhoon conditions to hold a rally today to show their support for the pro-democracy demonstrators in Peking. The rally took place amidst growing fears in Hong Kong over the apparent ascendancy of hardliners in China. Under an agreement between Britain and China, the colony is meant to have autonomous status when it falls under Chinese control in 1997. Business confidence has been hit too. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange yesterday registered the biggest single-day fall since the 1987 crash. The Foreign Office said today it did not see any link between the events in China and the future of Hong Kong, but it was worried by the Chinese imposition of martial law. Those worries are shared by Chinese living in England, who have been gathering outside the London Embassy today.
Here at home, Liverpool have won the FA Cup, beating Everton 3-2 after extra time in an extraordinary final at Wembley. The match had been billed as a Merseyside memorial to the dead of Hillsborough. Fittingly, it turned out to be a footballing classic.
This year's cup final was always set to be an emotional expression of regional pride. Before the start, it got the better of patriotism. The national anthem was drowned out by Merseysides. Moments later, utter contrast in the silent respect for the Hillsborough dead. Liverpool, the favourites on form and national sympathy, made an extraordinary start. Their first attack after 4 minutes gave Aldridge his first touch. A goal for the man who last year had missed a cup final penalty. But urged on by their manager Colin Harvey, Everton began to impose themselves in the second half. A flurry of chances came towards the end, the very last of which, in the 89th minute, fell to the substitute McCall. It meant extra time. 5 minutes after the restart, another substitute, more famous, more valuable at almost £3 million, put Liverpool back in front. Ian Rush, his first goal since early February. But again, Everton came from behind. Again, McCall the scorer. An extraordinary occasion was producing a game to match. Almost immediately, Rush's second put Liverpool back in front. It was enough at 3-2 to give Liverpool the cup.
And there was a happy atmosphere as supporters arrived before the match. Relatives and friends divided only by club loyalties. More than 40 arrests were reported, some of them after fans scuffled with touts, asking more than £100 for £8 tickets.
Cup final day in Liverpool dawned a predictable red and blue, but the traditional good-natured rivalry appeared to be somewhat muted by the memory of Hillsborough. Police were left to play a diplomatic role, as British Rail ferried 10,000 fans well beyond the Mersey. Within sight of the Twin Towers, though, a carnival atmosphere took over. The sea of scarves and hats may have flaunted opposing slogans, but the fans were determined to remain united.
Come down the same coach, or same car, all the same coaches. Yeah. We're friends.
Despite the party, many thoughts clearly lingered with the 95 Hillsborough victims. Tickets were carefully scrutinised to prevent overcrowding, but it didn't keep the touts away.
£22 the ticket, bought it for 70.
And how much did you sell it on for?
100.
How do you justify that?
Well, people are paying over the odds. I paid over the odds, so I sold it.
Regardless of the final score, the message from Merseyside was one of unmistakable friendship.
And Celtic have won the Scottish Cup. In a hard-fought encounter at Hampden Park, they beat Rangers by a single goal.
This was Celtic's last chance to lift what for them has been a disappointing season. Both sides struggled to settle in a scrappy first half, but then a mistake by Rangers fullback Gary Stevens gave Celtic their chance, and Joe Miller was there to take it. The league champions Rangers had their moments too, though, especially later in the game, but they couldn't find the finish or the luck, and a third trophy this season just eluded them.
David Owen has said that the Social Democratic Party will continue to exist, although in a slimmed-down form. The party is facing a crisis of declining membership and reduced income. Dr. Owen had to fight off an attack on his leadership at the party's council meeting in Coventry.
It didn't look like a party in its death throes, but these are the activists. With only 11,000 members nationwide, the SDP is in danger of becoming an irrelevant rump. Today they had to decide whether to stay in business, and if so, what for. Their leader, Dr. David Owen, and President John Cartwright had upset many members by hinting they might consider rejoining the Labour Party. Former parliamentary candidate John Martin said they had betrayed the party.
To mention it is a signal of weakness, telling the listener or viewer that you are uncertain of your own strength and reminding them of the growing strength of Labour.
The mood of grim defiance was symbolised by a popular button badge. But Dr. Owen drew much of the sting of the attack by saying that while he believed in inter-party cooperation, he too was committed to the SDP.
The SDP is staying in political business. We are sticking with it.
Mr. Martin withdrew his critical motion and a damaging split was avoided.
Talks have been going on between management and unions to try to avert industrial action in the power industry. The unions rejected an improvement on their 7.5% pay offer. An overtime ban will now start later this month. If it goes ahead, it will be the first official industrial action in the industry since 1970. Dockers leaders meeting in London today have called on their union to set a date for a national strike. The Dockers have already voted 3-1 in favour of industrial action over plans to abolish the National Dock Labour Scheme. That's it for now. The main news tonight is at 9:15.